My great-grandmother, Sadie Tanner Massell, was born in 1898 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, into a highly accomplished African-American family. Her maternal grandfather, Benjamin Tanner, was bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and he and his wife, Sarah Elizabeth Tanner, had 7 children, including the renowned painter Henry Ossawa Tanner and Mary Louise Tanner Massell, Sadie's mother. Her father was Aaron Massell Jr., the first Black person to graduate from the law school at the University of Pennsylvania. However, he left his wife and 3 children when Sadie were just a year old. Her mother later moved the family to Washington, D.C. to live near her sister and brother-in-law, Louis Baxter Moore, a professor at Howard University. Young Sadie's family alternated between living in D.C. and living in Philadelphia. During high school, she lived in Washington, D.C. and attended the all-Black, well-regarded M Street High School, where she graduated in 1915. After high school, she moved back to Philadelphia at her mother's insistence to attend the University of Pennsylvania. While there, she experienced racial isolation from white classmates and discriminatory treatment. Her isolation lessened when she became close friends with fellow student Virginia Alexander and her brother Raymond Pace Alexander, while he was an undergraduate student at the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce. In 1918, my great-grandmother Sadie received a Bachelor of Science degree in education. The following year, in 1919, Sadie Massell obtained a master's degree in economics, also from Penn. She also became the first national president of Delta Sigma Theta sorority after having been a charter member of the Gamma chapter at University of Pennsylvania. In the fall of 1919, she began doctoral studies at Penn and received a university scholarship in economics. With the recommendation of her economics professors, she later received the highly competitive Francis Sargent Pepper Fellowship. Sadie Massell wrote her dissertation, The Standard of Living Among 100 Negro Migrant Families in Philadelphia, in response to the early Great Migration of African Americans from the South to the North. The Great Migration was one of the largest voluntary internal migrations in U.S. history. 10% of the 400,000 Black people who left the South beginning in 1916 in response to increased demand for workers during World War I relocated to Philadelphia. Migrants hoped to build better lives for themselves and their children and wanted rights and freedoms they lacked in the South: voting rights, educational and job opportunities, higher wages, and justice in the courts of law. They also fled from Southern racial terror. However, the large and sudden increase in Philadelphia's Black population amplified racial tensions. White mob violence against African Americans in Philadelphia escalated into 4 days of mayhem in July 1918 as African Americans defended themselves against white attacks. By July 30th, city police had arrested some 60 Black residents, even though whites were the main instigators of the deadly clash. The Philadelphia attacks preceded the reign of racial terror that white Americans waged against African Americans throughout the nation in the Red Summer of 1919 in order to maintain white supremacy. 2 weeks before my great-grandmother earned a doctoral degree, white residents of Tulsa, Oklahoma burned down the most prosperous African American community in the country, the Greenwood District, by destroying 35 city blocks, an event that led to hundreds of African American deaths and displacement of some 10,000 African American residents.
Well, I finished Penn undergraduate school in 3 years. I was propelled to do this because my grandfather was approaching 90, and I was dependent upon him for my tuition. Now, in June of 1921, I received the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Economics. It was a great occasion because I was the first Black woman in the United States to qualify and to receive the degree. And I can well remember marching down Broad Street from Mercantile Hall to the Academy of Music when there were photographers from all over the world taking my picture. All of the glory of that occasion faded, however, quickly when I tried to get a position.
On June 15, 1921, Sadie Moselle became the first African American to earn a doctorate degree in economics, and one of the 3 African American women who that year became the first in U.S. history to receive a doctorate in any field. Sadie Moselle's accomplishment received media coverage throughout the nation. However, because of racial and gender discrimination, she did not receive job offers anywhere in the North that were commensurate with her degree. She took a job as an assistant actuary with the largest Black insurance company in the United States, North Carolina Mutual Life in Durham, North Carolina. After 2 years, in 1923, she left her position and returned to Philadelphia to marry Raymond Pace Alexander, who had just graduated from Harvard Law School. Facing continued job discrimination in Philadelphia, Sadie Alexander decided to attend law school at the University of Pennsylvania because she viewed the law as a means for advancing opportunities for African Americans. In 1927, she became the first Black woman to graduate from the law school and to pass the bar exam in Pennsylvania. She worked as an attorney at the law firm that Raymond Alexander established. Both of my great-grandparents, Sadie and Raymond Alexander, were early principal members of the National Bar Association, and their law firm was instrumental in drafting legislation that outlawed racial segregation in Pennsylvania. In the mid-1930s, Sadie and Raymond Alexander welcomed 2 lovely daughters, Mary Elizabeth and Ray Pace, to their family. This period also coincided with Sadie Alexander's increased involvement in professional and civic associations and increased demand as a public speaker. Her speeches focused on systemic barriers that prevented African Americans from having full access to the democratic and economic rights of citizenship, while also calling for social action and policy changes to dismantle the barriers. Importantly, she continued to practice economics in the public realm. Discrimination that she faced as a Black woman could not take away her hard-won doctoral degree in economics and all of the knowledge it represented. And now, we commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the day when Sadie Tanner Moselle Alexander received her doctoral degree in economics with the recovery of her intellectual thought through the publication of her speeches and writings on the economic status of African Americans. Her speeches are a testament to her tremendous intellectual acumen and her lifelong pursuit of racial justice. The speeches remain relevant to our political economy since they speak to our current moment of national reckoning with racial injustice. With their publication, Sadie T.M. Alexander finally takes her place among our nation's major intellectuals and great economists.